Recently, a group of the top CEOs in the United States from Fortune 500 companies attended the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute's CEO Forum, because apparently they do not believe in shortening that name, but you had the top CEOs from around the country, Fortune 500 companies, and it's an open discussion. Nothing is recorded, nothing is on the record, but a lot of it was, of course, reported by Fortune about the people who attended, their conference there. And what they had to say, basically in unison, with the exception of the tech bros, is that Trump is destroying our companies, he is destroying the economy, he is destroying our democracy, he is destroying our court system, he is destroying the independence of the Federal Reserve. So, to put it in other words, they hate every single thing that this guy is doing, and everything Trump is doing is having the opposite effect of what he thinks it's doing. More on that in just a moment, but first a quick word from today's video sponsor. By now you know Trump's big beautiful bill has passed, but almost no one's reporting how ICE will get nearly $40 billion of our tax money each year, making it the most heavily funded law enforcement agency in U.S. history. That's more money than most nations spend on their entire military. So much of our media is either missing the worst of this bill or twisting the language so you think it's all in your best interest. But we've seen the ICE raids ramping up. Now Trump's openly threatening to deport U.S. citizens. This should be the biggest story in America, yet it's buried. Making ground news essential right now is what all of this is doing. They're the only tool I've found exposing these blind spots in the media. By gathering the world's news in one place, organizing it by story, then analyzing just how far right and radical each unbiased source actually is, you get way more context than you ever would anywhere else. If we're being honest, we've seen Trump's power grabs throughout history. They said never again, and that means never again everywhere. And right now, it's happening here. So if you want to stay ahead on immigration, the economy, or simply finding the stories missing from your news feeds, Ground News has you covered. Their app and website is a smarter, more reliable way to stay informed at a time when MAGA is banking on us to stay distracted. So I've partnered with them to get you 40% off the same Vantage plan that I have been using. That comes out to $5 a month for unlimited access to everything I've mentioned and so much more. Just go to ground.news/Farron or scan the QR code to subscribe. With at least another 4 years of this, we can't afford to miss these details. So the big takeaway, of course, from this gathering of Fortune 500 CEOs was that Trump's policies are not working. And of course, many of these industries have indeed been impacted by Donald Trump's tariffs, his trade war, and they've said that, look, we no longer have the ability to absorb these costs. Not that they were absorbing much of it to begin with, but they did admit, hey, look, we tried to kind of cut costs in other areas so that we didn't have to pass it on to the consumer, but really there's nowhere else to cut. There really, for a lot of them, weren't places to cut to begin with, so all of it got passed on to the consumers. But yes, as per usual, these CEOs warned, we're making the consumers pay higher prices because of what Trump is doing. Now, that's not a surprise to anybody, or at least it shouldn't be. You see the higher prices when you go to the store. That's not just because they can, it's because they really kind of have to if they want to keep those profits as high as they've ever been. And they do. They could, let's make this very clear here, because I'm not going to say that these companies are victims by any stretch. These are companies, they're Fortune 500 companies. They could afford to reduce profit to not pass the increases on to you. So let's make sure everybody's in agreement with that. They don't have to do it. No matter what they say, they don't have to. they could just make a little less for the shareholders and the CEOs. But they won't do that, so we pay higher prices. They're doing that so that they can keep all of the millions and millions and millions in profits they make per year. So just make sure everybody understands that. This is not a group of victims at this CEO forum. It's a group of greedy a-holes that are screwing you over so they don't lose any money. You lose money so they don't have to. But one CEO of a major U.S. manufacturing company explained to the group, quote, "If the U.S. government wants to help protect certain industries, they need to help those industries be successful. It is not just putting a bunch of tariffs in place and assuming those industries are going to get moved to the U.S. There have to be incentives. Consumers want products to be low cost. Power tools, hand tools, clothing, sneakers. Does it really make sense to be manufacturing all that in the United States? I do not believe it does. I believe there are certain industries where it does make sense, but it is not realistic to expect every industry in the world to be manufacturing products in the U.S. for the U.S. Makes sense, right? I mean, we can't find Americans willing to go work in the farms. Farmers are struggling right now. I've seen so many reports just over the last 4 days about it, but they're struggling because they can't find workers because Americans won't take the jobs. If Americans aren't willing to go do that, which granted, it's backbreaking work in the heat, but do you think Americans are going to want to sit there and sew together your Nikes? Do you think they're going to want to sit there and, make your iPhone? No, the answer is no. They're not going to do it. We've seen that. Plus, even if all these industries did bring all of the manufacturing back here in the United States, even though our unemployment rate is going up, we still wouldn't be able to fill all of the vacancies. So bringing all the manufacturing back, just, numbers wise, we can't even do that. If we wanted to, it wouldn't work. And that's what these businesses are trying to convey. It's like, hey, look, we get it. Maybe we could bring some things back, but if you think everything can come back and still be produced at the level it's being produced today, you're an idiot. Fewer than half of the CEOs reported having increased investments in domestic manufacturing and other infrastructure since Liberation Day. And even fewer said they expected the results of their capital investments to be material. In other words, most of these companies say that since he put the tariffs in place, we haven't invested in our own company. We're not expanding. We're not manufacturing more. We're not doing more. We're not hiring new people because of the uncertainty that he has brought to the economy. They also attack the court systems, saying they better not rule these tariffs are allowed. They're worried about what the Supreme Court is going to rule when it gets to them. They also attacked the attacks on the Federal Reserve, right? Trump is pressuring Jerome Powell to lower interest rates, and he did by, a small percentage last week, a percentage of a percentage, by the way. And that's not good. Now, consumers may think it's good, like, hey, I can take a loan out for less money. That's great, less interest. No, in periods of hyperinflation, which we have, lowering interest rates and increasing the circulation of money not only sends the value of the dollar spiraling downwards, it also puts people in a cycle to where they're going to owe money and they're not going to have a means to pay it back because the economy is shrinking. It's stalling. So the banks then take on that risk, run the risk of failing, and then we're right back to where we were in 2007. Sound familiar? Because it is. Because this is what Republicans bring us. Because throughout my entire lifetime, I was born into the Reagan administration, every single Republican president has plunged this country into a recession. In my lifetime, the only recessions that have happened have started under Republican leadership, and they've happened under every single Republican leader. So if you're under the age of 42, you only know Republicans bring recessions. An entire generation only knows Republican recessions. It's what they do. It's all they know how to do, and it's what they will continue to do, according to the leaders of the biggest businesses in the United States. Thanks for watching, everyone. You know, we're inching closer and closer to 1 million subscribers, and we're aiming to hit that goal before the year closes. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so, and don't forget to like, comment, and share. Thanks for joining us as we head towards this huge milestone.